financial services, as it grows, we're going to create real career jobs where Turks Islanders can get significant wealth in a career, as well as creating new industries for entrepreneurism outside of tourism and real estate.
Welcome to Pushing Your Peers Podcast, the #1 podcast in the region for living a progressive and happier life. On this episode, we sit down with Paul Pirie, CEO of TCI Finance, as he takes us on a journey from the UK to the beautiful Turks and Caicos Islands. With a career spanning decades in corporate finance, Paul opens up about the opportunities and challenges in our financial service sector, the importance of purpose in your career, and what it really takes to achieve financial freedom, from banking innovations and the potential of digital assets to life lessons on growth and stability. This conversation is packed with insights that could change the way you think about money, career, and success. Don't just listen. Join the conversation, comment your favorite takeaway, and like this episode to keep the momentum going. Sit back, relax, and let's get ready to push some peas. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Paul Pirie to Pushing Your Peas podcast. It has been a long time trying to get Paul on the show, and our stars finally aligned for this episode. And Paul is a gentleman who has worn many hats in the finance field. So I'm gonna allow him to tell us about his journey briefly. Why did you choose the field of finance for your professional career?
That's an interesting story, but it might not be one that's valuable necessarily, because my dream was I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. So I was dreaming that I was going to shut down these big oil companies that were destroying the world. So when I went to university, within about a year, I saw all my fellow students at university were studying corporate finance and commercial law, and they had parents who were doing the same, and they were very, very wealthy. And I thought, yeah, maybe I should change. Environmental law seems to be a bit difficult and there's not much money in it. And literally, I switched to, after 1 year at uni, I switched to corporate finance and commercial law. And I absolutely loved it. The reason I changed might not be the best one in the world, but I really, really enjoyed it. And that became really my passion, reading law, corporate finance and mergers and acquisitions. Fascinating. Every deal you do is different, and that's where I developed a passion. And I stayed in that industry with the large investment banks for many years, and then sort of fell into consulting with PwC, and then I fell into digital assets with JP Morgan. Again, found another passion, and really that led me out here, strangely.
Paul, the field you've mentioned is very broad, so I want to zero down on something. What specifically do you love about being in the corporate finance field? Like, what is it? What gets you up at 3 a.m. in the morning to work on something? What's driving you in that field?
It very much depends on the job that I'm doing, but in general, I'm a firm believer that, although it's not, again, it's a strange thing to say, money is a baseline for the whole world. Everything in the end comes down to money. I'm not saying you should be working and aiming to be rich. I'm just saying that money is the oil of the global machine. It makes everything work. And if you're part of that machine, you can make things better, you can make things more efficient, and you can make a difference in the world. And so, although money might seem to be the enemy to many people that everyone's striving after, the idea that everyone can have a bank account or everyone can play a role in the financial ecosystem is a real goal. And I started off looking at mergers and acquisitions, and you look through companies, you break them apart, you create their value, you break it down to the nuts and bolts. And sometimes you see that they're not worth what people are saying that they're worth. And you'll realize this when you look at the huge valuations that some of these tech firms have now compared to a traditional law firm that will have a 3 times income, a 3 times revenue valuation, and you have a tech firm that'll have 100 times revenue valuation. So It's just fascinating to me, all aspects of it. And on top of that, the consultancy role. And I think if you're in a job, one way you've got purpose, but two, when you see something different every day, you never ever get bored. You can work 14, 16 hours a day and you're happy to go in every day. And I'm a firm believer that the earlier you get there, you can be ahead of the game. I'm up every day at 5 a.m, apart from the fact that I have dogs that I need to run around the beach with. But I'm a firm believer. You've got to get up and get going, start your day, and you don't stop until you finish.
Paul, you've worked in the UK, you've worked in South Africa, went back to the UK, and now you're here in the beautiful Turks and Caicos Islands. TCI Finance, how did this come about, and what is the purpose of this organization?
Let's start back to how I find out about it. So I was working in JP Morgan in Luxembourg at the time, and I was approached to basically apply for a role in Turks and Caicos. And quite honestly, I didn't know where Turks and Caicos was. And we're only talking 5 years ago. And the reason for that is when I started to look into it, give the example. In JP Morgan, everything operates on risk and compliance and regulation. So I spoke to our compliance officers, and they said they were literally the only jurisdiction in the Caribbean they would deal with was the Cayman Islands. Every other jurisdiction was on a high risk profile for JP Morgan, so they wouldn't touch it, which is why Turks and Caicos wouldn't appear on the radar for a big international firm like that. But I got talking to some people out here who are involved in financial services, both within the government, within Invest TCI, and in the private sector, and they started to explain to me what's happening here. And I honestly wasn't wholly convinced. I mean, it sounded absolutely fascinating. So I said, look, I'm going to come out and have a look. And I came out, and one thing that, you'll know, and all your listeners will know, and anyone who's ever been to the Turks and Caicos will know, is it takes you about half an hour of arriving to realize there's unbelievable opportunity here. And I'm not just talking in financial services. There's so much opportunity here for growth, for entrepreneurs, for businesses. It's really a very, very interesting market, and the speed of development and growth here is just incredible. So I immediately saw the opportunity, and I said to my wife, "Let's do it." I'm getting on in my age. I'm not ready for retirement yet, but the one thing that really enticed me was the ability to make a difference. The Turks and Caicos is a place where one person can really make a difference. If you will come onto the P's, but if you've got a purpose, you've got an end goal, you've got determination, passion, perseverance, here you can make a difference. Whereas working in an organization like JP Morgan with 260,000 people in the company, it's very, very hard for one person to make a difference. You're just part of a big machine. So this felt like a challenge that in my stage in my career, I really wanted to take on.
Now tell us about TCI Finance. Now you get the role of CEO. Tell us about the organizations and some of its objectives, and have you made any big strides since being the CEO of TCI Finance?
So TCI Finance is the same as pretty much any international financial center will have a finance agency. So you can use Cayman Finance, Jersey Finance, Guernsey Finance, Luxembourg for finance. So all of these countries will have a finance agency which operates independently to government, the regulator, and the private sector. So it's a sort of like a public-private partnership. And it has the sole objective to promote and develop financial services. So it's not tied to, it doesn't have necessarily a vested interest in any particular industry. It's there for promotion and marketing of the whole financial industry. So that on its outset sounds like an incredibly glamorous job, because I just have to travel around the world speaking at conferences and wining and dining people and getting them to bring business to Turks and Caicos. It's not quite that glamorous, I have to say. The foundations of financial services in the Turks and Caicos need a lot of work. We have a lot of business here. We have incredible talent here. Both Turks Islanders and expats who have set up businesses here and been here a long time. particularly in the areas of wealth management, insurance, banking, our legal profession. I mean, I've heard so many times compliments of our lawyers here compared even to major jurisdictions like London and the US. So the talent is here. But one of the challenges that I really face in terms of growing the financial services industry here is, bizarrely, the success of Turks and Caicos, which is tourism and real estate. So because those two sectors are so successful, all of the resource gets pulled into those sectors because that's where the money is. So with the majority of our lawyers, even our entrepreneurs, our wealthy individuals, our bankers, they focus on those two industries because that's where the money is. So trying to get support to focus on other financial services industries and grow them it has really been a challenge. And I don't want to overestimate the challenge that is. On top of that, you've got a lot of legislation and regulation because financial services carries a huge amount of risk. We all know about big Madoff and things frauds that have happened in the past. We know about more recently FTX happening down the road in the Bahamas. So there is enormous risk behind it, and we certainly don't want to attract the wrong business. We don't want to damage our reputation. So it's been a balancing act between attracting the right business, getting the support and the talent locally to run the business, and then going out and marketing. So to give you an idea of some of the areas that we're focusing on and what we're doing in that, we set up working groups within the industry. So we'll have a wealth management group, we'll have an insurance group, we have a very specific captive insurance group, and then we have a virtual assets group. We have believe it or not, an AI agents group, which is an area which I firmly believe we have an opportunity in. And the idea of those is we'll work with the regulator, the FSC, we work with even with the governor's office, we work with the government, and we work with the private sector to put in place legislation and regulation so that we can attract those businesses, but we can mitigate the risk involved. And obviously we have a business case behind each example so that we ensure there's revenue for the government, there's opportunities and careers, which is one of the biggest drivers for me is, at the moment, talented Turks Islanders go to university in the US and the UK, and generally they don't come back because, I know two very well who are in the UK now. They're earning £400,000 a year plus. There's no way they could come and earn that money back here in the industry they're in. So financial services, as it grows, we're going to create real career jobs where Turks Islanders can get significant wealth in a career, as well as creating new industries for entrepreneurism outside of tourism and real estate. So those are big drivers, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. Yeah. So a lot of the work we've been doing is foundational. Is a lot of canvassing, relationship building, marketing, just things like building the website, documentation that we're sharing with the regulator, with the Attorney General, with the Governor, with the government, and garnering that support, as well as building relationships with the business professionals here in the Turks and Caicos.
Paul, you talk about laying foundation, doing the foundational work. What is something that you're working on in the short term that will reap huge benefits for the local population right here in the country?
I can't say too much because I'm actually presenting a strategic vision to our board tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Which highlights four key pillars of specific businesses that we're targeting within the next 6 to 12 months, and we're working with the FSC and the AGs, the Attorney General's chambers, to put that in place. But one thing that will resonate with all of your listeners is banking. So there's a number of things here. One is, when I arrived, apart from the opportunities that I see, what you very quickly realize is how poor the banking system is here. And I'm not talking about the individual banks. I'm talking about the interrelationship between the banks. So the fact if I'm at CIBC and you're at Scotia and I need to send you money, it's going to, if I've got to send you $100, I'm not going to do it through the banks because it's going to cost me $70 to send it to you. So I'm going to pull cash out and hand it to you, or maybe even write you a check. But that is I mean, I don't know of another country in the world where that still happens. So that's one of the things where it might not be one of the primary goals of TCI Finance, but when you're trying to grow a financial services, we talk about foundations. If you don't have a good banking layer, you can't build anything on top of it. That's like the foundations of your house when you talk about financial services. So I'm working very closely with the Bankers Association to put in place the automated clearinghouse, which I know the Honourable EJ Saunders, as our Minister of Innovation, has been also referencing recently.
Talking about,
yeah, because that will make a huge difference to everybody, businesses, people. And one of the key things, what I think people don't realise, is as well as reducing the cost of sending money between banks, it'll also reduce our need for cash. I've never seen so much cash moving around, people queuing up to take out thousands of dollars, because it's cheaper to do that than it is to be paying things electronically through the banks.
Yeah.
So it will have knock-on effects across that, reducing queues, and I don't think we can underestimate the benefits that the ACH will have. And that will come, and the government, myself, the bankers, we're all working together to get that in place. And believe me, the banks know that this is a big thing for the country, so that will happen.
Paul,
apart from that, go on. Sorry.
I'm so happy. I mean, sorry, I want you to continue, right? But I'm so happy you touched on that, because this is a conversation I was having with Draxwell Seymour earlier this week. And I was like, Drax, you need to bring the Banking Association on, because banking in this country is ridiculous. You go and you wait in these long lines, and then sometimes the machines ain't got enough money for you. So I'm excited. I am elated that this system is coming on stream. I hope by the end of 2026 this is in place. I know you can't say much on it, Paul, but I'm hoping that it comes on soon. But you can continue. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, Leo, it's going to happen. Definitely, it's not any more theoretical. It's happening. So it's being built at the moment. It will definitely happen. I can't say if it's going to be Q1 of 26 or Q3 of 26, but it will definitely happen. So
excited.
Yeah, yes, it'll be game changing, I think, for that foundational layer for everyone in the country. Other things where, I mean, this is a little bit out there, but digital assets is one of my passions, and I don't know. I mean, my portfolio has been pinging all day because Bitcoin is flying. Another record high today. I think it's just hit about $116,000 a Bitcoin. The whole market, it's very volatile. I understand that. But the opportunity we have as a small, agile jurisdiction to capture some of this business, because as a traditional banker, it's hard to say, but and I was speaking to someone in Microsoft the other day. They were telling me in maximum 10 years' time, we won't even be using mobile phones. And I thought, you're crazy. Our whole life is on a mobile phone. And he said to me, no, we'll be using AI agents, our own personal AI agent, who won't just be able to use a large language model to find out information for us. It'll be taking actions. It'll have all of it'll own our personal data. It'll have all our credit, our banking information. It'll be able to release that information when needed to do credit checks and all that sort of thing. If you want to book a restaurant, it'll do it all for you. It'll do everything. So it won't just be able to do the research. It'll take the actions for you. You'll be able to have either some contact lenses, or they were talking about contact lenses, that will be able to project augmented reality images in front of your eyes as like a screen. So you won't need to have a phone or a screen anymore. And this is, I mean, you imagine how much you rely on your mobile phone now, and this is, maybe it won't be 10 years, but I believe that's going to happen. And this, I mean, taking it back a step, digital assets, stable coins, artificial intelligence is going to totally change the way financial services works. I know it's going to change a lot of other things, but the traditional banks are already changing. Stable coins are becoming a transactional currency in the real world, so you can pay for things with stable coins. MasterCard have just done a partnership with Coinbase to enable you to use your cryptocurrencies through your MasterCard all around the world. So it really is becoming mainstream. And
Wow.
one of the challenges that this business has is, one, it moves really, really quickly. So regulators can't keep up. So what generally happens is, for example, Europe with MiCA, their digital asset regulation, is they basically make it so stringent that it curtails innovation. So it slows it all down. And so what we're trying to do in TCI Finance is identify, we don't want to be all things to everyone, but identify a niche business which we want to attract, which makes sense here, so has benefits for the island and for the community, can generate revenue, and is something that's going to build into the future. And we've identified about four areas of activity. I don't want to say what they are now because I'm presenting them tomorrow, but we've already spoken to the FSD, the Attorney General's chambers, and they're waiting obviously for Cabinet to give a go-ahead to say this is the direction we want to go in. But the opportunity there is massive, and not just for those things I've said about revenue, but for the entrepreneurs on the island. If we can start this business up, I already have an investor who wants to set up a tech center on the island, which will, yes, it'll be a sort of a digital nomad center for people to set up their businesses. So international entrepreneurs can set up their own businesses here. And that will be for various reasons, including that it's tax neutral. But within it, he wants to build a tech center so that these people who come over will be, part of their responsibility will be to train local entrepreneurs and the youth here who are interested in fintech, digital assets, how you get involved in this stuff. Because a lot of these guys haven't spent 10 years at university studying. I mean, you can't even really go and study digital assets, but they're guys who have earned money. And I tell you, some of them have earned $100 million in a year through this. And, not because of the way they're educated, but because of the way their mind works, because their entrepreneurial spirit. And that is a definite spirit that people have here. If we can provide opportunities and knowledge and training in digital assets and those fintech areas of opportunity, then I think we set up a whole new generation of entrepreneurs here. Whether they stay here or they move to Silicon Valley or other places, that's fine. But I think it's just a massive opportunity.
Yeah, they'll be able to speak that universal language.
Yeah.
Now, Paul, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a local, right? Turks Islander shoes. What should we be doing based on your background and also your knowledge of the Turks and Caicos economy? What should we do? What should we be doing financially to position ourselves for financial freedom and prosperity?
Just speaking from a personal perspective, I would say that one thing I'll say is that if you don't take a risk, you'll never know what you're capable of. And that applies to everything in life. So what I would say around that is everyone should be setting life goals for themselves as well as in their professional life. So by life goals, I mean things like, I'll give you some of mine, for example, is that I want to travel the world. I love traveling and I want to see different places. I want to see different cultures. It's very, very important to me. And that's why I've moved around. Then another one for me would be, my goal is to, before my kids finish university, I just have two, is to set them up with a property so that they're on the property ladder, which is I know it's an enormous challenge here, but it's a challenge everywhere in the world now because properties become so expensive and salaries haven't kept up. So to get them on that property ladder is one of my life goals. And that's, after that, I'm not worried about leaving an inheritance for them. That's done. I've set them up to that level, then they're on their own. In terms of financial prosperity is just, my personal goal was to be comfortable in retirement. And that sounds very broad, but my mother and father's generation was very much super, super careful with money, constantly worrying about money from as early as I can remember, always worrying about money and making sure they leave an inheritance for the kids. And that's slightly different now in my generation. I know the new generation is different again. So I would say take risk, but diversify. So even if you can only take $10 a month, $10 a week. Put it in a fund if you can. Invest it. Open up an account. I know it's quite restrictive here on what investment brokers you can use. I know my eToro account got shut down a few months after I moved here because they don't allow you to operate out of Turks and Caicos. But Binance do, and I know there's a number of companies you can use. You can own your own wealth, so you can use an investment fund. I mean, there's many of them out there, but just put yourself as much as you can afford. But it has to be money you can afford from as young age as you can. Put it in, and you have to leave it there. You can't, after a year, go, "Oh yeah, I need that now." It's got to stay. You've got to forget about it, because it'll accumulate and accumulate. And it sounds not very much, putting $10 a month, but if you do that for 30 years, you will have a beautiful nest egg. And as long as you've diversified, if you stick it all into Bitcoin, you might earn 100x, but you might lose it all. So you've got to diversify. So put it into a diversified fund. But that discipline is so important. That's something I've tried to instill in my kids. It's not easy. And that is just, for me, is only based around a goal of being comfortable when I retire. So it's not brain surgery. I don't think you need to spend hours day trading and experimenting. It's just age-old accumulation. Is put aside whatever you can every month and make sure you leave it there. If you can't afford it, don't do it.
If you can't afford it, don't do it.
Yeah.
In other words, don't live above your means.
Which is easy to do. Well, I mean, out here, everything is so expensive. It's quite difficult.
Yes. Well, Paul, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. You shared a lot, and I'm excited for a lot of things that you have in the pipeline we've been working on, especially improving banking in this country. I often say that I lived in the UK. I went to the UK in 2015. And I'm like, I was able as a student to transfer money anywhere. I mean, why is the banking system in the UK 10 years ago more advanced than where we are today? I always say that, and what I'm hearing is that we're catching up, we're getting there, and I'm excited for that, because I see this even when you talk about the reduction of crime. Not having all that cash in your house, all that stuff, and all of this is going to go down. And the reason why a lot of people carry so much cash is for that simple reason that, you go to this person, or I can't transfer money to, let's say I'm renting. I can't, my landlord might be RBC. I'm First Caribbean. So I got to go to the bank and pull out, let's say, $1,800. And I'm at risk carrying that money anywhere I go.
Yeah, I would just say that I know everyone blames the banks, but we can't blame the banks. I mean, the banks try to give the best service they can for their clients within the parameters that they can do it. I mean, generally the banks here are subsidiaries of other big banks, and they're quite curtailed in what they can and can't do. But the main issue is not the individual banks; it's that interbank relationship, which is not their fault. We don't have a central bank. We use the US dollar currency because we don't have our own currency. So it's not just the bank's fault. I just want to say that. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I would just say that if anyone listening is interested in a career in finance, or any business or entrepreneurial opportunities that they think about in finance, if anyone's interested in digital assets and what we're doing, please contact TCI Finance. Vanessa and I, there's only two of us, but we're passionate about finance, and we're happy to help anyone, to talk to anyone about it, let them know what we're doing, etc. So anytime. And I would say that going back to the P, purpose is that's my P, because if you have a job where you see a purpose in your job, it will enable you to make decisions, have accountability, and drive to get that job done. If you don't have purpose, you won't feel any accountability, you don't want to take decisions, and you don't really care. And that is the worst person you can have in any job, is someone who doesn't care.
Paul, thank you for pushing your. I didn't even have to ask you the question. You, you came ready. No, Paul, but thank you so much for dropping these nuggets. And I want to ask you a few more questions before we leave.
Sure.
There's this young Paul fresh out of high school. What's one life lesson that was a light bulb effect to you? What was that one message that changed everything for you?
I won't go into details, Leo, but my wife and I, when we lived in Luxembourg, we had so it's not fresh out of university, but this was a life-changing moment. So we were incredibly successful, seemingly had the perfect life. She was very senior in HSBC, and we had a personal tragedy in the family, and it like that changed our lives completely. And this is where you realize that life is not all about money. It's not all about careers. It's really about what is it you really want out of life. What's the most important thing for you to end up with? Is it to have a bag of gold lying next to you in your deathbed, or is it to have a family who you're close to, and it sounds corny, but a family who loves you and that you communicate with and spend time with?
Yeah.
And at that point, that was when my wife and I, we moved to South Africa so that we could sort of start again and be close as a family. And the change in our lives was phenomenal. So it also, having a life-changing moment like that, also it develops your understanding, but it can reduce your tolerance, because when other people say, "Oh, I can't do it," or what I'm hearing is, "I can't be asked to do it." I can't be bothered to do it. So those life-changing moments, when you realize what's really important in life, then you're prepared to take risks. You accept accountability, and you don't tolerate ineptitude and ignorance and laziness. And so it makes you more determined. And it got to the stage when I was working at JP Morgan would bring me in order to get projects done that were just stalling. Not because I'd go in and shout at people, because I'd go in, I'd spend the time and effort, speak to people, understand what's going on, and you find a way to navigate through. And it's just through perseverance and determination. My wife was slightly different. When this happened, it also affected her, but she got known as the person who you'd bring in when you needed to shake up a department and fire people. So slightly different approach. But yeah, I think and it shouldn't take a life-changing moment for you to look at your life priorities, but that is really the moment for me where we just said, right, what's the point of life if it's just to have a fancy car and a nice house, and it's just not it. I'd rather live on a beach in Turks and Caicos with my family and have a wonderful life.
Paul, thank you so much for being candid. Final question. What legacy would you like to leave right here in the Turks and Caicos Islands when persons think about TCI Finance?
Well, depending on the immigration department, I'm not leaving until I've achieved what I want to achieve. So what I want is a stable, innovative financial services industry that can move quickly here, so can adapt to the industry, and one that generates real careers for Turks Islanders with real money, and creates a local industry. Got to generate revenue too, but it's long-term stability for the financial services industry, and the innovation point is key. So that's what I want to leave here. That's if I can leave here having got a financial services industry that is on that path. We have an agile regulatory and legislative process. We've got Turks Islanders coming back and setting up businesses or joining those businesses. We've got a tech training center built, which is generating new young entrepreneurs. I will retire a very happy man.
Thank you so much, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Pirie, CEO of TCI Finance, an innovative financial expert, I would call him. who's changing the landscape right here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And as he said, he has an open door policy. So anyone who's interested in getting some ideas or improving their portfolio, or even if you have an interest in the field of finance, Paul and his team, well, it's only Vanessa for now. They're willing to assist you guys. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on Pushing Your Peers. And we hope to see you on another episode in the far future where we are talking about accomplishments, right?
Definitely. Thank you very much for your time, Leo. Appreciate it. It's been
all right.
great.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next week on Pushing Your Peers podcast.